And like always, just give us a heads up if you're watching live, and if you're watching this in replay, just give us a let us know that you are watching it in replay so that I know. But shall we get this show on the road today? Really looking forward. Talk about relationships. Okay, so yeah, let's get started. How do we do healthy relationships? I mean, isn't that what our worlds are about? It's about having relationships. As much as we often think that we would like to go and live on an island alone by our lonesome selves, we all need people around us. And when you do people, you inevitably do relationships. And so, in terms of our topic today, I would like you to set an intention for what you would like to get out of this topic today. And I'm going to share my intention. So my intention is that you walk away and you are able to go and give serious thoughts about your relationships. We don't always sit down and think about what our relationships with other people are like. So I would like you to go and really sit and think and spend some time on how you do relationships, not how other people does it for you or to you, how you do relationships in a way that is non-judgmental, non-critical, and with pure acceptance of it is what it is for now. This is what it is, and it's okay. And with a whole lot of love for yourself. Because when we start looking at ourselves, and this is why we typically try not to do, to think about it. We don't want to spend time by ourselves with our thoughts, because often we are too scared of what is going to come up. Because whatever comes up, we need to deal with. So be kind to yourself through this process. But it is really important that we think about where we are at, that we do spend time on it. And if there is something that we can do about it, that we perhaps start doing the work and make the changes that might be required. So I want to make it very clear that when I talk about relationships, I'm not only talking about romantic relationships. I am talking about, relationships with partners, spouses, but also your relationship with your kids, your relationship with your boss, with your colleagues, with your extended family, with your friends, and with mere acquaintances. Because we do these relationships, we tend to do differently. And then there's the most important relationship, and that is the one that you have with yourself. Now you will always hear me referring to relationship with self. And I will always come back to that is the basis. That's the be all and end all of all relationships. There is but one person that will be with you from the moment you open your eyes until the moment you close your eyes. And that is you. And in previous videos I've touched quite a bit on how to self-love and self-care and all of that. So please go and find those videos. If you can't, let me know I'll be more than happy to share. And if there's something that you're struggling with, just let me know. You know, DM, comment, anything. I will get in touch with you. And again, if you are watching this live, just pop in and say live or say hi. I would like to hear from you. And if you are watching this on replay, just hashtag replay so that I know. So in our relationships, we tend to be like and depending where you are at in your life, where you are at in terms of your relationship with yourself, but we tend to be like a little bit of a chameleon, you know. Your relationship with your colleagues, you know, you will kind of change a little bit of color there. With your relationship with your kids, you know, there will be something different. And depending again on how you do life, yeah, you might, you know, change significantly in terms of your different relationships. So my question to you is, if I throw a few words at you that comes up when we talk about relationships, I would like you to go and sit down and really think hard about what comes up for you. How do you feel when I mention conflict? How do you feel about conflict? Is conflict something that you try to avoid at all costs? Is conflict something that you realize can be healthy? What comes up for you? Do you get triggered when I say the word conflict? So go and write down how you feel about conflict. When I say that you need to learn to say no, how do you feel about that? How do you feel when you say no to someone? Do you ever say no to someone? Even when you know that it is, you should not be saying yes. When someone corrects you, when you kind of get it wrong, how do you feel about that? How do you handle it when being corrected, being kind of told that you got something wrong? And then how do you feel about being, well, triggered? What triggers you? Do you know what are the triggers? And what do I mean by a trigger? By a trigger, I mean we all have some or other past traumas, whether it is something that you distinctly remember or whether it might be something that's sitting there under the rubble that you've never spoken about, that you've never addressed, that you've never dealt with. Do you know what the things are that triggers you? How do you feel about trust? How easy is it for you to trust people? Do you expect other people to trust you fully and completely, unconditionally? How do you feel about yourself? What do you feel about yourself? Can you honestly say that I love myself, I accept myself, I'm okay with myself? Can you confidently say, I've got skills, I've got value to add? Or do you feel you're not worthy? Do you feel you're not enough? How do you feel about yourself? When I talk about boundaries, and I am going to talk a little bit more about boundaries because I feel we cannot have conversations about healthy relationships without talking about boundaries. But how do you feel about when I say Let's learn to set healthy boundaries. What is healthy boundaries to you? What does that mean to you? Do you suddenly get this, doesn't sit right, doesn't feel right, I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to put boundaries down. I don't want to have to say no. Or do you feel like, I can do that? So do spend a little bit of time thinking about those questions. What makes for a healthy relationship? A healthy relationship, there's communication. There cannot not be communication. There has got to be respect, and I'm talking mutual respect. You need to feel respected, and you need to have respect. There has to be honesty and trust. Both ways. Dependability. Empathy. Empathy. When someone tells you, your spouse or your colleague tells you, you know what, I'm really having a bad day, how do you react? Like, you know what, get over it. We all have bad days, get over it, just get over it. Or are you able to actually empathize? There has to be a purpose in a relationship. There has to be individuality. And this is a tough one, because kind of society guides us towards, and certain faiths guides us towards, when you marry someone you become one. And what does that mean? Does it mean you both lose your personality and your own personal identity in this relationship? Or does it merely mean that you become a unity in terms of the family with your own individual identities? Because there's a difference. I believe we were created all uniquely for a reason. I do not believe that when we go into any kind of a relationship that we should let go of that uniqueness. This is what makes us special. There's a reason why we all have individual, unique thumbprints. DNA. There has to be mutual understanding and acceptance. Acceptance is a huge, huge word. Acceptance goes far beyond merely accepting someone's behavior or an act, or acceptance goes so much further. It's a very deep experience. When you say I accept, you mean really I accept, warts and all, without any conditions. It is what it is. That is acceptance. It doesn't mean I accept this, however I need you to do it differently. That's not acceptance. Or I would like to see it differently. That's not acceptance. Care. Relationship must be fulfilling. So not all these key factors would apply to all relationships, of course. There has to be fairness. A relationship is a two-way street. If you feel like you are treated unfairly, you probably are. There has to be non-threatening behavior. There is no threatening behavior in a relationship. Relationship has shared responsibilities, economic partnerships, if it's a spousal partner relationship. And if you're co-parenting, there's got to be responsible parenting by every person. So for those of you who are single and looking for a romantic relationship, the key factors here are critical, and they often appear on our checklists. We often have these long checklists. They've got to be this and they've got to be that. They've got to be caring. They've got to be understanding. They've got to be an empath. If you are single and you're searching for a relationship, just go and look at your checklist and make sure that those boxes that you require to be checked by your future partner, that you also check those boxes. Very often we as women expect our partners to kind of fix us. We want this amazing person. We want this most magical man. In the back of our mind, that checklist actually means I want you to be this perfect person because I want you to come and fix me, because I'm not there. Now, I'm sorry to say this, but if you are not there, if you're not checking all those boxes, how can you expect your future partner to check all those boxes? If you want to attract that magical person, you need to become that magical person. Then you will attract that magical person. If you want your partner to have sorted his baggage, his traumas, to love and accept himself, then you have to be that person. And I can almost guarantee that if you become that person, then you will attract a similar kind of person. We attract what we are. I hope it's not too windy. It's a little bit of a windy day today. Yeah, so that's quite a list to work towards, isn't it? So let's talk about setting boundaries, because boundary setting is such a huge part of doing relationships. Why do we need to set boundaries? Why is it so important? Because many of us are people pleasers. Many of us are caregivers. Women generally, we will do anything and everything. And we tend to, when we meet a partner, we will go beyond, to make sure that that partner is, that you can show your benefits to this person, and more than often we start with boundaries, that wide. And more than often those boundaries are not sustainable. So you could start a relationship by jumping over every single hoop there is. You could start your relationship by going out in the morning, starting your husband's car for him, taking his laptop to his car and doing all these weird and wonderful things for them. But if you can't see yourself doing that until the end of your relationship, then don't do it. Don't do it, because what you are doing, and that's a really silly example, but if you, whatever you start doing, whatever your boundaries are, that is what this other person in the relationship is going to expect from you going forward. And when the time comes when you realize, but I can't sustain this amount of giving that I do very often without receiving back, to then bring the boundaries in, it's one of the most difficult things. It takes a lot of patience and understanding and conversations, communication. And isn't it better to communicate that right up front? Isn't it better to lay down the I can do this, I can't do that? Big thing for me. I don't enjoy cooking. And ever since I actually started voicing that when I meet people, it's become, people expect women to need to and want to cook, isn't it? But the funny thing is, when I started saying that out loud, I initially thought I was going to get so much resistance, like, what? You're a woman, don't you enjoy cooking? I enjoy caring for my family, yes. But the actual act of cooking? No. It's not me. And it's funny that when I started voicing this and saying to people, the reaction I got was like, oh, okay. You know, surprisingly how many men actually cook. But that's what I'm saying. Make sure that your boundaries, your personal space is well understood right from the beginning. Your values. And ladies, how do you know what your boundaries are when you do not know what your values are, when you don't know who you are? So let's just talk quickly about looking at you when you are in a relationship. And honestly, it is really, really hard to do an authentic relationship, a healthy relationship, if your relationship with you is not a healthy one. If you are not able to look after your own mental, and I'm not talking about your external looks and appearances and stuff. That is a personal journey. I'm talking about your inner world. If you are not looking after your inner world, then how can you expect anybody else to look after your inner world? For example, how many of you work overtime? How many of you get employed to work 8 to 5 with an hour lunchtime? I know, I used to be there. Do you know that my daughter, the example I set for my daughter in terms of what work looks like, is one of work all the time. There's no such thing as 8 to 5. To work overtime all the time. That's the example I set for her. So now she's going to go either way. She's either going to say, hell no, I'm never going to do that. In fact, I don't even want to work. Or she's going to go and do the same. If you are employed to work 8 to 5, and I'm not talking about exceptions, if you are employed to work 8 to 5, then your work needs to be done. Now, regardless of the fact that if you're spending your time on Facebook or social media or whatever during the day, yes, of course. But if you get employed to work from 8 to 5 and you actually work from 8 to 5, you should not have to work overtime, with the exception. It shouldn't. That is not a two-way street. It's not. But how many of us do it? How many of us do it because we are caregivers, because we, we fear, because of our fears. Because if I don't do it, I'm going to get fired. If I don't do it, I'm going to be replaced. If I don't do it, I'm going to be abandoned. If I don't do it, I'm not going to get paid. So how do we set healthy boundaries? What are our challenges? Let's first talk about our challenges in terms of setting healthy boundaries. First of all, we're worried about other people's feelings. So we're having these conversations, we realize, okay, there's a boundary of mine that's been overstepped. I don't like it when my spouse raises his voice at me. I need to have this conversation with him. But in this conversation, you feel like you're going to hurt his feelings. So you just don't have the conversation because it's easier. Fear of rejection or abandonment. We're so scared that when we put our foot down and say, actually, you know what, that is not negotiable. This is my boundary. This is my space. This is what I need. That you will get rejected or abandoned. And it is, I'm going to say, many of these feelings that we have is not necessarily true. And there's always that test of, is it probable or is it possible that is going to be the reaction? More than often, we already decide for other people what they're going to feel. And if you actually have that conversation, open and honest, you often realize that I was completely wrong. Guilt and shame. If you're sitting with feelings of guilt and shame, yeah, it makes it difficult to have conversations about boundaries. Not knowing how to do it. It's not something that you normally do. It is difficult to, in your mind, play that conversation of, okay, how am I going to do this? We don't want to appear selfish. We live in a world of duality. You're either selfless or selfish. When we start caring about ourselves, it seems selfish. It's not. It's not. Setting down your boundaries is not selfish. It is something that is a requirement to do for a healthy relationship. Perfectionism. Perfectionism is a big player in setting boundaries because we want to be this perfect person. We don't want to appear as if we have faults. We don't want to appear as if we've got limitations, disabilities, or whatever you want to call it. So how do we set healthy boundaries? The first step of setting healthy boundaries is to have a healthy relationship with yourself. When you know who you are, when you know what your values are, when you know what your purpose and your passions are, when you know what your future, you want your future to look like, and who you want to be, it becomes so much easier to set boundaries. So much easier. And the vice versa is true. If you do not know who you are and what your values are, how are you going to set those boundaries? Your boundaries are going to be like that. You know, the one day it's going to be there and the next day it's going to be there. And then you wonder why people overstep your boundaries. That is chaotic. That's a license for chaos. Because people are never going to know where they stand with you. They're never going to know what to expect from you. They're never going to know how far they can push you. They're not going to know. They're always going to be wrong. They're always going to get it wrong. Because as your mood fluctuates, that is how your boundaries will fluctuate. And yeah, we've got our moments when we have different moods. We've got hormones. Let's face it. Let's be honest about that. So the first thing is really to know exactly who you are. The more known you are with who you are, the more confident do you become in who you are. It's inevitable. It's inevitable. And the more confident you are in who you are, the easier is it to say, that is what I will allow in my life. And nothing more, nothing less. So once you know yourself, you are able to identify your boundaries. You can't set your boundaries if you don't know what they should be. I made a decision in my life to not surround myself with people that I find toxic to my environment. That's my boundary. I will not negotiate on that. I cannot change people. I might be a life coach, I might be able to help people, but I cannot change and help everybody. No, it's impossible. Nobody can. Understand why you need the boundary. Do you know why you need the boundary? I know why I don't want toxic and negative people in my space. It's because I'm an empath. It's because I am sensitive to other people's feelings and needs. And although I have learned to protect myself most of the time, I realize that it is really hard for me to do it all the time. So I choose to only surround myself with people that I can safely exchange energy with. I know why. Without knowing why and understanding why you have a certain boundary, it will make it very hard for you to constantly stick to it, because let's face it, people are going to push your boundaries. They are. Until they realize, okay, this is not negotiable, and then they give up. But you need to stand strong in the beginning. In communicating your boundaries to whoever, be straightforward. Don't pussyfoot. Say it as it is. And do not apologize or give long explanations of, you know what, when that happens, then that happens, and da-di-da-di-da-di-da. Because then you're kind of already negotiating, aren't you? No, be confident in who you are and be straight up. Do not apologize for who you are. Do not ever apologize for who you are and what your boundaries are. Use a calm and polite tone and be caring, kind. When you communicate boundaries, it is a difficult thing to do. And ladies, if you feel anxiety or stress, name it and say it. Name it and say it. Take a moment and breathe. Do whatever you need to do to make yourself calm. Because if you are in an anxious or stressed state, your body is going to go into fight or flight and your words are not going to come out wrong. Right. They're going to come out wrong. Your body language is going to be all wrong. Your whole demeanor, your whole energy is going to change. I'm going to say this again. Before you communicate your boundaries, don't do it when you are anxious. Get rid of the anxiety. There are tools. I'm willing to help you with tools to reduce the anxiety, because I completely understand that these kind of conversations brings about anxiety, especially, having it with certain people. If you are having to go up to your boss and say, "Sir, I am not able to work after 5 anymore," that is an anxious driven conversation. So calm yourself before. Know who you are. Know what is important to you. If you're making a choice between having to work overtime after 5 and looking after your 6-month-old baby, and your value is family, it's crystal clear what you need to do. Your boss runs a company. What he does with that information afterwards, that is his choice. But I can almost guarantee you that if you are working overtime and a few other people are working overtime, it means that they need to find another person. They need to recruit someone to do the work that you are doing after hours. 90% of the companies out there, they know that. And they more than often can find the budget for it. It is abuse. Don't be abused. That is when your boundaries shift. And I'm not saying be a bitch and put down your unplug everything at 5 o'clock strictly. I'm not saying that at all. Of course, it's not that simple and easy. But you in your heart of heart will know if it's not right. If whatever you are doing is not right. Trust your gut. Ladies, if you know who you are, and you know what your values are, and you know what you stand for, and you know what you want in your life, you have a gut. Your gut will tell you when something is off. Follow your gut. Listen to your gut. Our guts are powerful. Our guts is our body being connected to our minds. It's a trigger. Listen to it. So if you find it really, really hard to say, okay, got to go from there to there, that's where you want to go. You want to completely bring your boundaries in. And you find those conversations and that is hard. Just have open communication with whoever you are talking to and find a solution. Even if you merely tighten the boundaries, even if you just bring it in a little bit, see how it goes. Do not make the conversations personal. Do not make conversations personal. Conversations about boundaries is about you. It's not about the other person. not about the other person. Blame is the very last thing you can do. Never start the conversation with you do this or you do that. Don't. The best way to have these really difficult conversations is to start with I feel. I feel. I feel this is not right. I feel this is not fair. Start with your feeling. Find the feeling. Find whatever feeling it creates for you. And start with the feeling. It completely changes where the conversation is going to go. If you're having a conversation about something that you don't want your partner to do, never start a conversation with you. and even if you telling him you make me feel is even worse, because then you're literally attacking him. If you want to get the point across, rather frame it as, when you do that, it makes me feel. These are difficult conversations to have. But trust me, you will reap the rewards in countless ways. Your life will become so much easier and so much freer. And it makes no sense when we talk about setting boundaries that your life will become freer. Doesn't make sense, I know. But think about it. If everybody knows what to expect from everybody, how much less conflict, how much less conversations do you need to have about that? And how many more important conversations can you have? How much more fun can you have? How would that make you feel? How would you feel if you can say, I've got a healthy relationship? Just think about kids. Kids need boundaries. Kids ask for boundaries. They beg for boundaries. They do. I know the tough conversations with my children. How close we became. It's a bond. Those difficult conversations. And I'm not talking about the difficult conversations when they've now pushed it too far, they didn't really know what the boundaries were, and you end up exploding, and there's a lot of anxiety and unemptiness and guilt and shame around it. I'm not talking about those conversations. I'm talking about a conversation depending on their ages, obviously on their age level, about forming healthy boundaries. Just, dude, you can't do this. That behavior is not acceptable, whatever. So I hope that's been helpful to you guys. I hope that sheds a little bit of life. I know there were a few people who asked to talk about relationships and particularly boundaries. So I really hope that was helpful. And I would love to hear more from you. I would love to have some comments. Again, if you're watching this on replay, just drop a replay, please. If you've got any questions, if there's something that you want to chat about, just reach out to me, please. My door's open. And yeah, I loved doing this, and I love doing this, and I will continue doing it for a while. So I will see you next Thursday, same time, same place. Have fun. Have a great week.